It said this was a time when numerous black officials were elected to public office while the South was occupied by Union soldiers. However, the majority of blacks were still suffering in all facets of life. Just like now, you got some blacks in government official positions, but guess what? The white man still don't hold them equal to him. You know what I'm saying? The white man still looks down on these black government officials that we have today, even in the White House. They still look down on them. They still just a nigga to them. All right? Sharecropping. Sharecropping became the new way that people in power kept control. Just like today, corporate slavery. Instead of being directly forced to work, black sharecroppers' options were greatly limited to the point that this farming system became de facto slavery. You know, in fact, slavery. Former slave owners saw sharecropping as an opportunity to take advantage of the uneducated free slaves by drawing up contracts that saw these workers give up as much as 70% of the crop harvested. Meaning, okay, if I came here and bought this piece of land, and I go to this white man and say, hey, I want to buy this piece of land. He tell me, he know that this land is only worth like maybe $100, but guess what? He tell me it's worth like $1,000. So guess what? I have to work to pay this man off, and I only have like maybe the $100 that it's really worth. So I give him my $100, and all the crops that I bring in, I had to give him 70% of that to pay off the debt that I owe to him, which really I owned the land in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? That's the same way with these house mortgages. You get you a house, let's say it's $100,000. You finance it for 30 years, let's say at $500 a month. You pay your house off in 30 years, but guess what? You still don't, you own the house, but you don't own the property. But if you don't pay your property tax, guess what? They come and take the house and the land. That's how crooked these white people is, man. That's why they known as the devil, which is known as a deceiver. Cause they are the main deceivers of this whole world, man. How can you sell a person a house, but not the land? You know what I'm saying? You got this person thinking they own the house and the land, but if they don't pay their personal property tax, guess what? You come and take the house and the land, but they didn't pay the house off. That's wicked. That's why you white people is known as the devil, man. The #1 deceivers of this world. That's why the Lord gonna come and destroy you wicked ass crackers, man. Through the spirit, YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI. All right. It says, it says being kept in ignorance meant remaining almost free labor. See what I'm saying? Pimping, corporate slavery. Another lesson for blacks on Labor Day. But African Americans weren't the only laborers who had conflicting interests with property owners at the end of the 19th century. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing at this time. There were laborers of all races working 16-hour days in sweatshops all around the nation. This was good for the total economic vitality of the country, but led to a situation in which very few people got rich at the expense of the masses. These conditions inspired some workers to organize labor unions to balance the power between the capitalist owners and laborers. All right, going to the next article on this Labor Day. It's called Labor Day for Blacks, a day on, not a day off. It says for many Americans, a Labor Day is simply a day off from work that marks the ending of summer, celebrated with barbecues and spectator sports. All right. It says, but its purpose is to pay tribute to American workers and their insistence on humane working conditions and fair pay. I'm talking about you crackers. What cannot be lost in all the revelry is the activist spirit that underpins this holiday. It is a day that honors action and political demands, not calls for national conversations and periods of reflection. It says, as such, Labor Day this year should resonate especially well with African Americans fresh off the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Talking about the march that Martin Luther King led, that wicked Negro. In fact, the events that led to Labor Day fed into the development of the March on Washington. Meaning the reason why the March on Washington happened was because of the unfair labor wages and conditions. But for who though? We finna find out. It says these historical ties should have special meaning for Black America today as it continues to face unacceptably high unemployment rates. The ongoing fast food workers' strike for better wages is also instructive for Black America, especially as blacks make up a significant amount of the nation's low-wage earners. These past, present, and future links captured in the African-American relationship to Labor Day provide a modern-day timeline of the Black workers' American experience. It says how Labor Day was born. It says Labor Day was nationally established after the Pullman strike of 1894, when President Grover Cleveland sought to win political points by honoring dissatisfied railroad workers. The strikes did not include porters or conductors on trains, but for the black porters, racism fueled part of the workers' dissatisfaction and was never addressed. So that let you know the Pullman strike was started by who? The so-called Negroes that was working for the Pullman company for the railroads during the time of 93 or 1894. Those are disgruntled so-called Negro workers, not white workers, man. See, throughout history, man, it teaches you that the Pullman strike was about unfair, unpaid white workers. No, this was about the Negroes that was working at the Pullman factory for the railroads during 1894. They the ones that came up with this strike, this revolt. It says Pullman porters were black men who worked in the train cars attending to their mostly white passengers. So those were black slaves, man. Performing such tasks as shining shoes, carrying bags, and janitorial services. White people weren't doing that back then. They was owning the companies. You know what I'm saying? That was benefiting off the labor, the hard labor and unfair conditions of the Negroes here in America. It said during this period, this profession was the largest employer of blacks in the nation and constituted a significant portion of the Pullman Company's workforce. Yet blacks were not allowed to join the Railroad Workers Union. You see what I'm saying? It said being excluded from the right to even fight for fair work and wages, the Pullman porters formed their own union called the Brotherhood of the Sleeping Car Porters. It said Jacob is the former of all things. So guess what? These Negroes that were treated unfairly and wasn't paid correctly, you know what I'm saying? They were being paid below the pay scale. They didn't want to form their own union, man. It was a form of protest against these crackers. It says the Pullman porters formed their own union called the Brotherhood of the Sleeping Car Porters, the first black union. And A. Philip Randolph was its first president. That name should sound familiar. The first planned march on Washington was Randolph's brainchild. Set to take place in the 1940s, this demonstration was called off weeks before its kickoff date because President Roosevelt met with Randolph and other civil rights leaders in 1941 and signed an order barring racial discrimination in the federal defense industry. Meaning, he passed laws against Randolph and Martin Luther King and Abernathy and Jesse Jackson and other. Well, I don't think Jesse Jackson was their name, but I know Martin Luther King, Abernathy, and somebody else. I forgot his name. To stop them from racial discrimination in the federal defense industry. Roosevelt did so to stop the march from happening. So he didn't want this march to take place. That's why he went to them and try and get them to sell out. It said, black porters, prime movers in labor history. It said when black workers were excluded from the railroad union and thus not honored in the creation of Labor Day or the fleshing out of the strike ending agreement by President Cleveland, they formed their own union. This directly set the wheels in motion for what became the 1963 March of Martin Luther King, the largest political demonstration in American history. A. Philip Randolph was also intimately involved with the planning of the march in '63, along with the main leader, Bayard Rustin. All right, it says partner Bayard Rustin shares memories of the '63 march organizing. Though Labor Day was created at the exclusion of the black worker, see, Labor Day was created at the exclusion of the black worker, meaning Labor Day was created to praise and honor and worship these crackers for their work, which they didn't do to build up America. They didn't build up America. The so-called Negroes, Latino, and Native Americans is the ones that built up America, the children of Israel. We was the one being treated as slaves, not them. All right? It said, though Labor Day was created at the exclusion of the black worker, it says,